Thank you, audience, for joining us for this in conversation with the eminent personalities. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Seeram Ramakrishna, professor at the National University of Singapore. I'm also an awardee of Distinguished Alumni of IIT Madras. I'm also the coordinator for Sangam 2020. And it is my deep honor and pleasure to have a conversation with the eminent person, Professor Rama Jayasundar. She is currently heading the Department of NMR and MRI at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, India. She has a unique trajectory of career. She is a physicist with a PhD in NMR from the University of Cambridge. She is also a professionally trained and qualified Ayurvedic physician. Furthermore, she is also an artist and a professionally trained musician. As the theme of Sangam 2020, Driving the New Normal, it asks us a question, what is driving the new normal? What made us to get into the new normal? Clearly, it is COVID-19. COVID-19 is associated with the health of the human beings. And Professor Rama is eminently familiar with the issues of healthcare from the aspects of traditional Ayurveda as well as Western allopathy. I thought I would request her to join us at Sangam 2020. I have a small secret to tell you. 30 years ago, that is 1989, she was at Cambridge, I was at Cambridge, University of Cambridge. 30 years later, because of Sangam 2020, we reconnect. And in a way, we are living up to the message of Sangam 2020, coming together after 30 years. So you could see I have this immense feeling as well as pleasure to have a conversation with Professor Rama Jayasundar. And she kindly agreed to have a conversation with us. Hello, Professor Rama. Welcome to Sangam 2020 Fireside Conversation. Let me begin by asking you a question.
Hi, Seeram. So first, I'm really happy to reconnect with you. And this is really a Sangam 2020. And thank you for inviting me for this brief chat on this very interesting topic and probably need of the hour topic as well. Although no time is a wrong time to think aloud on intellectually stimulating topics, I think this definitely is an apt period to ponder over science and spirituality for a couple of reasons. A, the ongoing pandemic has gripped the entire world and making no distinction between the have and have nots and the most and the least scientifically advanced countries. B, the pandemic, I'm sure, has made many of us stop in our tracks and introspect in some way or the other. Not only as individuals, I think the countries have also, they are doing a lot of rethinking. So I think this is therefore a very good time to talk on science, which tries to solve mysteries, and spirituality, which remains a mystery. After years and years of discussions on this topic, it still is a mystery. But independent of the pandemic situation, I think evidences are closing in on us to rethink about science and spirituality. There was a time when science and spirituality were considered polar opposites. I think three disciplines in particular are making us change that thinking. One is medicine. Empirical research and evidences have revealed an indelible connection between medicine, spirituality, well-being, and also the psychological resilience that patients have, during illness. if they believe in spirituality. So I think as the empirical evidence mounts, medicine can no longer neglect the clinical implications of spirituality. Bringing in science and spirituality has thus a very practical purpose, very useful purpose, and the effect of spirituality on health is now an area of very active research. I mean, we do not have time to go into the details of it, but the results are very exciting and very interesting as well, and very loaded results as well. The other discipline that tries to bring together science and spirituality is biology. Scientists are now moving away from the reductionistic perspective and are adopting a systems standpoint. Life processes are now being understood in terms of interconnectedness, interactions, and the phenotypic outcomes because of this interconnectedness and interactions. So in fact, natural scientists and also physicians are now appreciating the fact that human beings are more than the structural components they are made of, and the existence of non-physical domains. So there is an increasing realization that these domains are equally or maybe even more important than the physical and physiological domains in the human system. So more and more scientists are warming up to this idea of existence of non-physical and subtler domains within a human system, and they are ready in a way to explore these domains in a more deeper way. The third discipline, which actually should have been mentioned as the first discipline, which talks very seriously of the link between science and spirituality, is actually physics. In fact, this is the first discipline which actually started engaging the gap. So many of the top physicists of 20th century, like Einstein, Tesla, Max Planck, they spoke of the very close connection between science and spirituality. In fact, they have also revealed how much of their discoveries came as inspiration, which is considered an outcome of spirituality. So I'm mentioning these only to convey how the equations between science and spirituality have begun to change. And at this point in time, I cannot but mention a very interesting survey that was carried out in top US institutions, and this was also published. So many top US scientists were interviewed for their views on spirituality. Now, believe me or not, surprisingly, majority of these scientists considered themselves as spiritual, although almost all of them said that spirituality and religion are different, and they said that they are irreligious but spiritual, and they consider spirituality to be secular. So these scientists also said something very interesting, that how their spiritual leanings feed back into the work they do, what they do and how they do, and why they do what they do, and how it actually sets them apart from the scientists who do not have spiritual leaning. So of course, this is not the time to go into the details of these, but I think this is something that the audience who are listening should kind of, this paper should be, people should access this paper and look into the details of the study. So spirituality in a way is also very eclectic. Different people have different understanding of what spirituality is. So again, let us not go into the details of it, but as a scientist, I see very interesting parallels between these two disciplines. So for example, the sense of oneness is a very central theme and characteristic of our spiritual experience. I mean, I do not have any personal spiritual experience. So this is what the people, the spiritual teachers throughout the world, irrespective of their culture and geography, they say that there is a sense of oneness with the nature, with the cosmos, that they experience when they go through this spiritual experience. Now, if you look at modern science, this fundamental interconnectedness of all natural phenomena is a dominant theme in modern science as well. So the reductionistic way in which the scientists have been looking at nature and biology, and of course we still continue to do it because it is so much part and parcel of our training. But we are also, there is a slow movement away from this, where they are talking about a systems approach and interconnectedness. So this fundamental interconnectedness is a central theme, not only for the spiritual teachers or the people who are involved in spirituality, but also for modern science. The other similarity I can think of is, science tries to understand this unity, this interconnectedness through experiments. And spirituality probably helps one experience this unity. So there is a difference between doing experiments and experiencing the results of the experiment. So this is like, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. The letter of the law is, it's quantifiable, it's objective, you can objectivize it, but then the spirit of the law has to be experienced. So this, I think is a kind of link or connection between science and spirituality as I see it. And there are other very interesting connections, that I can think of as well. For example, both science and spirituality are born of very inquisitive human minds, and both require years of special training, dedication, and focus. It is not easy to be a scientist. I mean, you go through a rigorous training period, and it is not a joke to be a spiritual person as well. It also requires years of training, dedication, and focus. And both are very interestingly individual inquiry. So just as an individual can pursue a scientific research career and a scientific journey, an individual can also pursue a spiritual journey. And science explores reality in the realm of space and time. I mean, we all know how, space and time plays a very, very important role in science. And spirituality probably searches reality in the realm of consciousness and explores the connection between the individual and the cosmos. Science is based on experiments, observations, and it's a third person experience. So I do the experience for another person who benefits from my work. It's a third person, it's my experience, and I'm a third person to the other beneficiary, right? But spirituality is based on insights, observations, just like science, but it's a first person experience. It is something that you need to experience. This is like, telling a happy news. I can say that, look, Sriram, I'm going to give you a happy news, but unless you feel the happiness, it doesn't make sense, right? So I think this is again a difference between, or a similarity between science and spirituality. And another very interesting similarity is how the observations of both science and spirituality take place in realms that are inaccessible to ordinary senses. So for example, if you look at the um, experiments done in quantum mechanics, so these are realms where, which you cannot see or access through our normal senses. You need very special training, very special instruments to do it. So similarly, spirituality is also not something that you can access with ordinary senses. So our just eyes and ears are not enough for it. You need to go something. You need something more deeper for that. And again, I would like to emphasize the point that access to these non-ordinary levels of existence or experience takes place only after very long years of training with a very rigorous discipline. So again, I think this is a very interesting similarity between the two, although, both of them are working in different realms. So the observations of both science and spirituality, they defy expressions in ordinary language. Just like, the language of quantum mechanics is mathematics, right? So not everybody can understand mathematics. Similarly, the experience that a spiritual person goes through may not be, I mean, at least that's what these people say, that it's very difficult to express them in ordinary language. And while science studies how we have come into existence, the matter that was involved when we came into existence, spirituality actually seemed to study why we exist. I think it's a question which gives a purpose and value and ethics to our life. So if we realize, if we can find the answer to this $1,000,000 question, why we exist and how we should exist, I think that would probably bring a paradigm change in people's behavior and thought process as well. I can go on and on about some more similarities. So, for example, science studies the external physical domain, whereas which has layers of matter. So, from gross to subtle subatomic world, it's all matter. And spirituality also studies internal domains which has layers of existence or awareness. And both ultimately are searching for truth. And science is trying to understand how matter is formed, and probably spirituality tells why matter is formed and how life has come about. And science goes, of course, we know how it goes by facts that are verifiable empirically. I think the same is true of spirituality. If we shed our bias and prejudice and the mental reservations we have about spirituality, I think we will understand that they also are speaking of experiences which have a method of pursuance and which can be experienced or checked by the individual. And in a way, science and spirituality are both liberating. Science has given us so much material comforts and conveniences, and it has really liberated us from the drudgery of mundane issues, day-to-day issues. And spirituality probably liberates one from petty thinking. And what difference liberation, freeing from petty thinking would do to the world. It will remove the differences that are almost always the causes of many conflicts, both at the individual level and also at the level of the countries. So spirituality has been making an interesting comeback in recent years, and perhaps it is making an entry to the mainstream science as well. There is an increasing belief that spirituality and science are approaching truth from opposite directions. And the scientists themselves, in a way, they are seeing themselves as unlocking nature's secrets through their science, and they now see the lines between science and spirituality are becoming blurred. So I think the pandemic has brought in new normal, and I am sure this new normal will include a paradigm shift in our thinking as well, because it will affect one's health, and at the same time it will also affect the health of the world around us. I think, these are my quick thoughts on science and spirituality, both as a scientist trained in physics and as one who is now exposed to an alternate way of thinking by studying the Indian knowledge systems.
Thank you, Rama.
Thank you for asking this question. And I think it's a very, very important question. And I think it should be done for the benefit of the ailing people, for the benefit of the humankind. And but I think the first job in this exercise should be to understand the perspectives of these systems, because these two systems come from very different cultural backgrounds. You may ask whether science has a cultural context. It does have. If you look at the way modern science is done, and also the way health is being handled by allopathy, it is a direct result of the reductionistic viewpoint that that the Western science has has succeeded. I mean, it has brought in such technical advancements, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful science, and because of this reductionistic approach, we know so much about what's happening, the complexity of the human system. If you are focusing on the human system, but there is also, even in Western science, they are now moving away from a reductionistic to holistic view. So these two are two very different viewpoints, worldviews. And so if you look at Ayurveda and allopathy, one is from a reductionistic standpoint. That's how it looks at health and disease. The other is from a holistic standpoint. So I think when we are talking of leveraging the strengths of both the systems, we need to have complete clarity of thought on what these systems stand on. Otherwise, we would be damaging the either of the systems or both the systems. So I will not say much about allopathy, since we all have a lot of familiarity with this disease care system. I would like to call allopathy as a disease care system, because it started off as as a discipline to understand the pathophysiology, and the focus of the research has been to improve the diagnosis, bringing tools for diagnostics and so on. But of course, in recent times it has understood the importance of the health. But one needs to understand the standpoint and focus of Ayurveda. Of course, at a very pragmatic level, Ayurveda also functions like allopathy, a disease care system to cure patients of their illness. But the worldview of Ayurveda is very different. It has adopted a systemic worldview and to understand health and disease. So its worldview is, I can say, that it's a worldview based on interconnectedness. And probably, if I may say, it is a consciousness based worldview. And so this is not a reductionistic perspective as allopathy is. So it is very important to understand this fundamental difference before we even address the question, how do we leverage the strengths of both systems? So what we know, the strength of allopathy, right? It uses technology, and that is not a trivial matter, and it is very good in surgical disciplines, in emergency medicines, right? But so what would be the strength of Ayurveda? It has a number of strengths, but what I would like to uh, say mention here is in continuation of my thoughts on your first question. So I would like to mention bringing that spiritual aspect that Ayurveda has.
Hmm.
So it is the whole basis of Ayurveda, just like yoga, is to make the human body fit for spiritual experience and happiness. And Ayurveda believes that spiritual health is reflects in the physical and physiological and psychological health. So this is the fundamental difference between Ayurveda and allopathy. There are a whole lot of other fundamental differences as well, but I think this is the core of the difference. The focus of Ayurveda is on health, and it believes that health is related to the not only to the physical and physiological, but it's related to the spiritual health. So Ayurveda goes beyond physical body into the understanding of consciousness itself. So in a way, it is a science of using health as the basis of one's journey towards spirituality. So good health is in Ayurveda, it's called swastha. So it means that it is a natural state of being in the form of one true self. So you understand yourself, and that is the basis of your health. When you deviate from it, then you have physical ailments, you have physiological ailments, you have functional problems, you have psychological issues, and so on. So, the true Ayurvedic practitioners must have knowledge to educate individuals to cultivate their own inner resource for healing. So, if you look at allopathy hospitals, they are centers of technology where the doctor dictates what the patient should do. So, here in Ayurveda, in the classical Ayurveda, the physician patient interaction is very important, and the physician is expected to have the knowledge to help his or her patient increase their inner sense of healing. So once that is done, healing becomes very, very easy. And of course, there are also lots of medicines and procedures, just like allopathy has, to treat diseases. And something very interesting that Ayurveda tells is how existence is awareness. So it talks about, I think we all should understand that yoga and Ayurveda, they are two sides of the same coin. Both have come from the same knowledge pool. And so I always tell people that now, yoga is accepted worldwide. And I don't think there's anybody who has any major doubts on yoga, or the effects that yoga has, positive effects that yoga has on people. So I always tell people that, if you believe in yoga, you have no other go but to believe in Ayurveda. So if you say, yes, I believe in yoga, I don't believe in Ayurveda, it's like telling I believe in physics, I don't believe in mathematics, or I believe in chemistry, I don't believe in physics. Just like, physics and chemistry and biology are different perspectives on the same subject matter, right? So Ayurveda and yoga, it's again, it's slightly different perspectives on the same biological system. And while Ayurveda prepares the individual, to be in a position, healthy position to follow spirituality, yoga teaches them the technique to climb this ladder of spirituality. So something that really caught my attention, when I studied Ayurveda, is how it says existence is awareness. So, just the physical existence, yes, it is also a level of awareness. I know that, I exist physically. It is a very, very basic level of awareness. Then, I know that I have some information in me. So that is a kind of, I can say, a mental level of awareness. I know what kind of information my brain has and what kind of efforts I have put in to get this information. Another level of awareness is, the knowledge, right? How you put it to good use. So science can be put to good use or to negative use as well. So there are different levels of awareness, and the level of awareness that Ayurveda talks about is the awareness at the at a very, very deep level. And Ayurveda focuses on health, so that, only a healthy person can even explore these other subtle realms of awareness. So, I think it's very important to understand the fundamental difference between the two systems. Both have their positives, and we should very judiciously take the strength. We should know which one to take and which one not to take, and where to integrate, where not to integrate, because ultimately at the end of the day, we want to give the best to the humankind, and without stripping down the essence or the beauty or the utility of each of these systems. So, I mean, I can go on and on about Ayurveda.
Yeah.
It's very, very sad that, I do not have time, but
Yeah.
maybe another time. I think it has loads of very interesting questions that should really put up the antenna of the scientists. So I think it's time that we shed all our inhibitions and bias and prejudice. One cannot be biased and prejudiced about something we do not know. It is not scientific at all. Science is about having an open mind, about having a flexible mind. So I think, we should have a flexible mind and see what the system has got. I mean, let us forget that we are Indians. I think part of the problems that Ayurveda faces is, we as Indians, we feel probably that, we should be critical of our own system, otherwise we would be taken as not objective. It is important to be critical. It is very, very important to be critical. It is even more important to be self critical. But if you do not know the subject, then you cannot be critical. Even to be critical, even to question, you need to know about the subject. Unless I know something about quantum mechanics, I cannot pose any sensible, intelligent questions, right? So I think it's very important that we get to know about this system, which has a very different perspective on health and disease, and then see how to integrate the two.
Thank you, Professor Rama, for emphasizing that both allopathy and Ayurveda has unique strengths, and we in New Normal should benefit from both of them.
Absolutely.
You also said that Ayurveda should not be seen in isolation. It should be seen together with yoga, which is already embraced by millions and millions of people in India and across the world. You also emphasized that Ayurveda is about deep self-awareness and awareness of everything. And that requires all of us to have open mind. So all the attendees and IITians, the call from Professor Rama is keep the mind open and continuously learn and not shy away from asking the questions, but learn deeply about anything before asking the question. I think it's a very clear and strong message. As Professor Rama said, the time is limited because this conversation is meant for less than 10 minutes, but she could go on give lectures for more than hours and hours. But the idea is we are communicating with millennials, and you have time is limited, and you like to have things given to you in a shortest and sweetest way. So intentionally, we chose this conversation to be about 10 minutes so that you get the gist of the clear message from Professor Rama. So on this note, before I thank her, I basically reserve her time for the future, where I will ask her future questions, because she said keep an open mind, and I have this mind of asking more questions. So in the future, I hope Professor Rama will enlighten us on the questions like these questions I have for a long time. For example, why everything exists? What is life? How to understand soul? What is consciousness? What is the purpose of life? In a way, these questions come naturally when we start deeply aware ourselves and the universe. So I guess we save these questions for the future interviews with the Professor Rama. At this point in time, please join me in thanking her for taking time out of her busy schedule and also addressing these questions, which normally require a lot of time to explain and make sure the information is understood properly. So I think, no doubt, she made a very concerted effort, given us what we need to learn. And please join me in thanking Professor Rama from AIMS. Rama, it's wonderful to have you on this Sangam 2020 fireside conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sriram, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to think, about something other than my routine research. So it was also a pleasure for me to, think about these very, very interesting and important questions which affect us, in more deep ways. So thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And yes.
Thank you, Rama.